Welcome back to the weekly show here at Pinkbike. Today we are talking all about travel essentials. We've also got Mike Kazimer lined up, who's going to give us a segment of 2 minutes of tech, and then we're going to round it off with a Rate Readers Ride segment. To start things off, we've got Sarah Moore in the house today. Thanks for joining, Sarah.
Of course, happy to be here.
Stoked to have you. She runs the Pinkbike homepage, and so she sees all of the news articles and any user-generated content that you guys are submitting to us. But this past weekend, we saw a lot of exciting enduro racing, and believe it or not, like we're almost through the enduro season. So kind of get us caught up on what's happening out there, Sarah.
Yeah, so we saw this was the 5th of 6 enduro races, so we only have one more left after this. It was a brand new venue. It's called, I think you pronounce it Elech Arena in Switzerland. It looked incredible. I would love to go ride my bike there, looking down over glaciers, alpine views. Absolutely incredible. In the men's race, we saw Jack Moyer take the win, so that was great to see him, the 2021 overall champion, back after a bunch of bad luck and injury, and so yeah, nice to see him.
So good to see him back.
The top step, yeah. And then in the women's race, Harriet Harnden came back, took the win. It's a really tight race between her and Isabeau Cordier for the overall. Isabeau's just 63 points ahead now going into the final round. Richie Rude has a bit more of a margin ahead of his teammate, Slavomir Lukasic. They were second and third in the
But he's still
today.
not wrapped it all up yet.
No, I think he's like 360 points ahead. So yeah, it's like everything's going to come down to the last round, which is, you know, kind of what you hope for. It makes it more exciting, right? So very good chances that Rude's going to take it though. And we'll see for Isabeau. They could both take a record 4th overall win if they do it. So it would be cool to see that.
Yeah, the course looked super fun, super amazing. It's just rad to have new venues getting slotted into this EDR schedule. Unfortunately, in my opinion anyway, it is a bit of a shorter season with only 6 races.
And all in Europe as well.
Yes, it's the European world domination basically.
Yeah.
So that was exciting to see. And then there were a couple more just like feel-good stories of either riders having good rides and the liaisons. It seemed like a standing ovation for better liaison times this round, where riders could get into the Alpine, actually catch their breath, and then drop in for some of these stages, which looked absolutely mental and rocky.
Yeah, great to see, because there were a couple at the beginning of the season where it seemed like they were, you know, maybe pushing the riders a little bit too much with how tight those liaisons were. So yeah, great to see the races being won on the downhill and not because you were able to make it through the day.
Exactly. Any other feel-good stories we need to know about?
It was great to see Elliot Jameson took his best ever result in 7th. He's a fellow Canadian. And so, yeah, that was just really cool to see. I think there was something like 7 Canadian men in the top 20 as well. So that was like way more than any other country. So maybe not in the top step, top 3, but definitely, yeah, all circulating around there and in the top 20. Yeah, really cool to see.
That's insane. The racing on both the men's and the women's side is so extremely tight that literally every race you could have a whole different top 5 or top 10. And so, yeah, to see a couple of Canadians out there out on the top 20 list, that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. And then the other thing that was really cool, RJ Ripper, he's a kid from Nepal, who he was able to get a visa to come and race. If you haven't seen the documentary, look it up. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes. It's really cool, feel-good story. And he was able to get a visa to come and race in the first, in the open category. But yeah, just really cool to see him coming out from Nepal and being able to just take part in this first Enduro World Cup.
Oh, what a rush. Like, not only to finally get the opportunity to like lay it down on the full international stage, but then actually had like a great run at it. And so hopefully we'll see more of him in the future. That actually gets me thinking, Sarah. So these riders are traveling the world with their bikes. I mean, you've done this before as a World Cup cross-country racer, and you don't want to leave anything at home. Like, it must be so stressful to, I mean, I've been there before, packing your bags, making sure you're not forgetting the essential stuff. So I was kind of thinking over the weekend as I was out on an e-bike ride, and I'm like, what are some of the things that when you're going traveling with your bike, whether you're flying or just on a road trip, like what can you not leave at home? If you leave it at home, your bike trip is done before it even started. What comes to mind for you? Because I got a couple things.
I mean, first thing, you probably need a bike pump. I guess you can get those from other people. But also just anything specific to your bike is really important. I mean, it's nice to see the universal derailleur hanger. You can kind of walk into any bike shop if your bike has one of those. But if you have a specific derailleur hanger, that used to be something that was always like, make sure you have one of those because you'll be absolutely stuck if you don't have one. Yeah, it's nice to have a spare set of tires as well if you get a slice and you're kind of stuck.
If you got to spare 3 kilos of luggage weight to hang around with.
One spare tire. Definitely stuff to fix a flat.
Yep.
Kind of like, I'd say just like a little toolkit to go with your bike.
Yeah, that's a good point. Toolkit. Usually, like when I would travel with my bike to what was the EWS back in the day, it was like my multi-tool that lived on my bike could build up the bike, but it always got a little bit sketchy when you needed to put your pedals on.
I was going to say, remember an 8mm Allen key?
Yeah, don't forget those, because your friggin' pedal comes loose halfway through the first stage, and that's not a good look. Some other things, I had to make a list because I actually have a running list in my phone so that when I'm packing for a bike trip or a road trip, I don't accidentally forget something.
That's a great idea.
If you're running Axis on your bike, obviously you're going to want some spare batteries and your charger. And that might require you to bring an adapter for where you're going, a charger.
Yeah, good point.
Spokes. It seems easy to just like walk into the shop and get any whatever millimeter J-bend spoke. But if you have specific wheels or you have straight pull spokes, like such a good idea just to bring a couple of spokes, because a couple broken spokes can easily become a broken wheel by the end of the day. Derailleur hanger, as you said. And then for me, it's shock bolts and flip chips. I find those are the things that, like, you're probably not just going to lose a flip chip out of your bike because your suspension is bolted into there. But I have definitely snapped a shock bolt before, like a morning of a race. And so that was extremely hectic.
Stressful.
Just what you don't want before you're going to start a 2,000 meter day of racing.
I feel like the longer you've been racing, probably like the longer your list of things that you like need just in case. Because you were like, I lost the cleat bolt once.
Yes.
And my shock, need a bolt for that. And I need this and that. So yeah, the longer you've been racing, I feel like the longer this list is. But hopefully if you've been racing that long, maybe you've got a professional mechanic who can bring that toolbox for you at that point, right?
But then it's like, can you trust them enough to bring everything? You should be able to, but those are most of the important things for me. And then a bleed kit, because I don't know why, but whenever you're traveling, it's just like you get air bubbles and stuff happens. But then I went out on an e-bike ride with a friend, and I was like, oh, this is, like, in my perspective anyway, e-bike riding is a different activity than my regular mountain bike ride. And so I went out with a friend, and she was extremely knowledgeable. She only rides e-bikes now. And she was telling me about all this extra stuff that she packs when she's going on a road trip with her e-bike, like spare chains, because apparently you can snap a chain a bit easier on an e-bike with that extra torque. And then she was even talking about like the little sensors that go on your wheels so that the e-bike, it all syncs up, etc. They can get covered with dust. And so if you get like little error codes or something, like that was one thing that she kind of reminded me to check. But I was like, this is, not only do I need to worry about my usual suspects, you add an e-bike into the equation and you need just like a little bit more.
Yeah, or if you're flying with it, we won't even get into that. That's like
can
you can't bring
fly?
You need to ship the battery separately, is my understanding.
Right.
Yeah, so you can't just like hop on the plane with your e-bike as is. I think you need to either get a battery where you're going or ship it ahead of time. So yeah, that definitely adds a layer of complexity if you're traveling with your e-bike.
Yeah, but it makes me think too, like it's worth looking where you're going on a trip and seeing if, first of all, are there local bike shops? Can you get things like a spare tire or chain if you need one? But then think about your brand, because if I snap something on my Commencal bike and it's brand specific, is there a Commencal dealer around or a rep that you maybe want to make connections with before you get to your destination? Is there a shop that you could potentially ship your bike and your spare battery to, and they could build it up and have it ready to go? These are all things to consider. I haven't gone on a big trip with my bike in quite some time, and that's why I keep my list going, because Lord
You're
knows,
looking forward to it.
Forget.
Yeah.
But I am looking forward to it. I'm going on a trip in August, actually, so I got to start planning now, getting those spares. But hop into the comments. I'm pretty sure there's some very important piece that I did not talk about today, but you probably know. So let me know what that could be. What can you not leave your home without? Next up, we're going to send it over to Mike Kazimer, because he's got a 2-minute tech segment with a brand new bike.
Today I'll be talking about the new Ibis Ripmo. So the Ripmo is back, and it looks a lot better than the last one. At least I think so. Ibis straightened out the top tube, gave it looks that kind of mirrored that of the HD6 that was released last year. Has a much more clean, modern-looking frame design. Along with the new appearance, it also has in-frame storage as well as mixed wheel compatibility. So you've got a little compartment on the down tube, you open a latch, 2 bags in there to hold your tubes and tools and snacks. So something we're seeing a lot of other companies do. Great to see that added to the Ripmo, kind of adds to its versatility. As far as mixed wheels go, there's a flip chip on the swing arm. You can just rotate that depending on what size rear wheel you'd like to run. Sizes small and medium, those already come set up mixed wheel. And then you have a new size, extra medium, and from the extra medium, large, and XL, those ones run 29-inch wheels front and rear, or you can swap it out with that flip chip. As far as geometry goes, it's about the same as before. Head angle's 0.4 degrees slacker. C-tube angles now kind of vary depending on the size. They actually get steeper as the frame sizes go up, but overall, the kind of general feel of the bike is a lot like the last one, and that's a good thing. A lot of riders love the Ripmo. It's easy to ride, short chain stays, not super long reach. So it's one of those kind of do-it-all bikes, and if you like the way the previous one rode, you'll probably like this one. So you can head to the homepage and check out all the details, a little bit more in-depth first ride impressions, but overall, Ibis didn't want to mess with a good thing, and they didn't. They kind of kept it pretty similar. Oh, I should mention one kind of neat thing they did change the bottom bracket height depending on the size, and the bottom bracket height gets higher as the sizes get larger, and that's to improve the bike's breakover angle. So if you have an obstacle, a really long bike can sometimes get hung up on it. So if you raise the bottom bracket up a little bit, not as likely to get hung up. Little thing, I can't think of too many other companies doing that, but clever little feature. Kind of goes along with Ibis's attempt to go a little bit more size specific for the bikes, just small tweaks here and there. Either way, that's a quick 2 minutes of tech on the Ibis Ripmo. Head to the homepage to check out all the other details, and we'll toss it back to Christina and Sarah.
Thank you, Kazimer, for those 2 minutes there. His story with the Ibis bike was on the homepage a couple days ago, but if you missed it, I'm going to link to it below. Just yesterday, we released a Pinkbike podcast episode, and it was very tech heavy. So if you missed it and you want to check it out, I'll link to it below. Alrighty, final segment for today, and we're going to wrap it up with a Rate Reader's Ride. Now, this bike that we're about to check out is an absolute beauty of a classic bike. It is in pristine condition, and chances are a lot of you viewers at home were drooling over this bike back in the early 2000s. Sarah, what bike were you riding back then? Because I think you started riding around the time this bike came out.
Yeah, I think 2004 was around when I started riding. So yeah, definitely I was into the more, my first bike was a hardtail. I was racing cross country. I had a Da Vinci Cactus. Yeah, a bit of a little pointy bike. I got it used from a friend. Came with the clips and shoes, which were too big for me, but it was, you know, the great introduction to mountain biking. I did my first Quebec Cup races on it, and yeah, stayed, you know, got me into biking. So yeah, good little bike.
I love that. It came with clips and shoes. You just don't get that kind of service these days.
It was used. It was from a friend, and they were like a little bit big. And so often when I'd stop, I would pull my whole foot out of the shoe because they were too big and the cleats were like pretty tight. And yeah, it was a pretty exciting bike to learn how to ride on. But yeah, stuck with it. Somehow it worked out.
Well, this bike, it's a 2003 Banshee Scream. And like I said, it's in impeccable condition. My neighbor Pete, he just has this lust for bikes, classic bikes specifically. So he'll find them, he'll find all the parts like perfect to the era and build them up. And he does actually ride them in the Whistler Bike Park sometimes. So let's send it to Pete and learn more about this Banshee Scream.
Right, this is my Banshee Scream. It's 2003, I believe. It was the bike I kind of dreamed about when I was a kid. Growing up in the UK, you didn't see a lot of these around. And I picked it up last year. Kind of been into older bikes for a little while now. Got some good friends who are into them too. It's a large, apparently. I fit it. I'm 5'8", so gives you a bit of an idea how big it is. It's got a 2003 Monster on the front. It's just the normal Monster, 200 mils of travel. It's quite ridiculous. It has the most amount of oil in the world in it. You probably need to take out a loan in a small Arabic country to do a lower oil change. It's silly. It has absolutely no adjustment whatsoever. None. No rebound, no compression, nothing. But what's kind of cool is the fifth element rear shock has all the adjustment. It has a progressive spring on it. It has high-low speed, compression and rebound, I believe. And yeah, it's the complete opposite to the fork. So pretty cool that a shock at that time came with that much adjustment. Yeah, it's got sun rim, double track rims. It's got 26 on the front, 24 on the rear. We got a Maxxis Minion on the front with the old school logos. On the back, it's some form of tire. Arrow Racing or something, I believe. It's the hardest compound in the world. We've got a lovely seat covered by a friend Jake. That's real goat hair. We got some BMX cranks, some BMX Primo pedals. I actually had those on my BMX when I was a kid. I thought it was appropriate for this, with color matched dice valves. What else? We've got Hayes brakes, the original ones. Obviously way too afraid to do anything to them, like bleed them. That's way too dangerous. They work, so we'll stick with that. Race face doubler stem, super cool. It's got flames on it. Who doesn't love flames? One of my favorite features of the bike is the bars. They're a little bit narrower than what I normally run. That should come at 69 centimeters. So on the seat clamps, we have dual seat posts. So, you know, if you want to go for a pedal, take this 54-pound rig, you know, out for a real nice time, climbing up the hills, you can. It mainly prefers flow trails. Tech is a little terrifying, so are flow trails. Mainly A-line, crank it up, that sort of stuff. I actually raced it last year in the Fat Wednesday race. Chainless, which was even more terrifying. But yeah, it was good. It makes you appreciate some of the older films a lot more, and seeing what people did on them was pretty impressive.
Awesome bike, absolutely. Let us know in the comments what you think about Neighbor Pete's Banshee Scream. I mean, I think it's a beauty. He's offered to let me take it for a couple of laps. I have reluctantly said no so far, but we'll let you know if that changes. What else is coming up this week, though, Sarah? It's kind of a busy week coming up for us.
Yeah, we've got Crankworks coming up next weekend. So yeah, kicking off the downhill is actually the first weekend of Crankworks, so that'll like kick off things in a big way. Mm-hmm. Looking forward to seeing that. I think it's a break in the World Cup downhill circuit, so we're going to see a lot of top downhill riders there. So
I'm stoked. Ronan Dunn is on cue to do
Finn
the
Isles,
downhill
obviously
race.
local guy. So yeah, and it's on the 1199 track.
Yep, the Stevie Smith Memorial Track.
Yeah.
That's this weekend. So today, when the show's coming out, the riders are actually on course, doing the course walk and their first practice session. So keep an eye on the homepage. Every single day, there's going to be articles, tech stuff, community stuff, rider stuff. So don't want to miss that. And I think that's it. That's it for us on this Pinkbike Weekly Show episode. Thank you so much for watching. We hope to see you next week. And if you don't already, please subscribe to the channel.